Going to talk to you guys today. Something I don't do a lot of. I'm not generally fond of being in front of a camera, but I'm going to give a rig breakdown. I've had a lot of folks ask me throughout various social media platforms. I've had some folks inbox me and ask me about my equipment. So we're going to go over that a little bit today. This kit is fairly new to me. Not a new kit, but it's new to me. It's one that I've been after for a long time. Peavey Radial Pro 750 series. They are all maple shells, very thin shells. There's no hardware attached to the shell. It's actually a three-piece design with a radial bridge glued to either end of the shell, and the hardware, your tension rods and hoops and all mount to those bridges. So there's no hardware on the actual shell. These drums are beautiful sounding, very rich, deep, low tone. They like to tune low, lower than a lot of other drum kits that I've owned. So the kit itself, when I originally got it, it's the sizes are 10 by 9, 12 by 10, 14 by 12, and 16 by 16 toms with a 22 by 18 inch kick drum and a 14 by 5 inch snare drum. The snare that I'm using here in my normal everyday setup is not that snare. I actually am using and it's considered a budget snare, but I think it's great. One of the great values in drumming as far as snare drums go. It's a Gretsch Full Range Series black nickel over steel shell, 6.5 by 14, 6.5 depth, 14 inch diameter. On this drum, I've got a set of 42 strand, generic, I think they're sound percussion snares. Ran pretty loose. You can reach down there and run your finger across it, and they're barely touching that head. Got my res head tuned up on it a little bit with 6 of the 10 lugs a quarter turn higher. Kind of helps with the response of those 42 strand snares. Sounds like a drum channel. Did an episode on snare wires. I would highly suggest checking that out if you're looking to kind of customize your snare sound. There's a lot of good information on that channel in general. So Cody Ron is the guy's name. Check his channel out. Great. If you're a gearhead, it's probably the best drum channel out there. Him and R. David R. Those guys are fantastic at what they do. But anyway, I digress from that. So we've got right here on the kit currently, I'm using the 10 inch rack tom. I did have the 12 on. And behind the kit, the 12, 14, 16 sound great. But I did notice from front of house and on live playback and from audience perspective, the 12 and 14, where the 12 likes to tune, it kind of naturally likes a low tuning. It tends to choke a little bit when you pull it up. Raise the tension on it some. I've played with it some. I've got it a little better, but the 12 and 14 kind of ran together tone wise from out there. And playing in a worship band, number one goal is to lead others in worship to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But I feel like a big part of doing that is sounding good, regardless of what I'm playing. If the drums and the equipment sound good and are pleasant to listen to, it's not so much a distraction to people as some out of tune, wonky sounding equipment. I feel if I was in the audience listening to a worship band and the drums didn't sound great, that would probably distract me a little bit. So definitely don't want to do that. I want my gear to sound as good as possible. So as of right now, I'm running the 10, the 12, the 10, the 14, and the 16. It's kind of out of frame over here. Barely see it. But those drums that's kind of the tone that I've been after for a little while. So I'm gonna rock with it. See how this thing goes. cymbals, I got a hodgepodge mix. I used to be very particular about wanting to match brand cymbals. Um, I've kind of gotten away from that a little bit. I like, there again, going back to what sounds good, what blends well together. So for that, I've just kind of put these together. And for my hi-hats, you can see right here, they're actually not hi-hats at all. I've got a pair of Sabian XS20 16-inch crashes. The bottom, as in most sets of hats, you want generally for to get a good response out of them, good stick definition, and good definition when you're playing, chicks and splashes with your foot. You generally want a heavier bottom hi hat, no matter regardless of the cymbals that you're playing. So I've got a rock, what's considered what they call a rock weight, which is a thicker, a little bit heavier weight XS20 crash on the bottom, and I've got a XS20 medium thin on top of that. So that's what I'm using for hi hats, and I've really enjoyed these. On top of those, I've got a Toka percussion seed rattle, is what they call it. Some kind of African seed pods. They dry out those hats just a little bit and kind of give an extra texture when I'm playing with my foot, which I tend to keep time with my feet, whether it's quarter note splashes, eighth note chicks. I do a lot of foot stuff with my hi hats. So that seed rattle just adds an extra texture, sound texture to that. I've enjoyed having them. Saw a lot of other guys using them. Watched a lot of videos on it, kind of comparing sounds. So for $20, I mean, I don't think I made a bad investment at all for those. It gives me a unique sound, and I can always, you could always just remove that right off the rod and play the hats open. Still sound great. My main crash, kind of out of frame a little bit here. I'm going to shift over to it. This is a Masterwork Jazzmaster Raw Bell 20-inch crash ride. It's my main left side crash. It's got a great tone. It's dark-ish, but it still has a little bit of brightness to it. It cuts plenty enough for this room that I'm in. Very lush crash sound. That cymbal right there. Great cymbal. Swells beautifully. Just has a really good bell. But it's a little bit, I don't know, slightly heavier than medium thin. If you're trying to categorize it by weight that way. But it does the job, and it does it well, and I like it. I enjoy that cymbal. Any of these three cymbals that I'm using here, I would feel comfortable going to a gig if I was just playing a small minimal setup, kick, snare, hats, a cymbal, and maybe a floor tom. This 20 or either one of these 22s, I think for a single cymbal setup could get the job done, no questions asked, and they blend really well together. I may have mentioned that already. For my ride right here, it's another Masterwork. It's the traditional Jazzmaster series 22-inch crash ride. Slightly, I'd say it crashes like a full crash. Little bit, not medium thin, kind of maybe in between. Great stick definition, nice dark tone, beautiful crash. Also, it swells crazy good. Good bell on it. I had a Zildjian K-Con 22-inch medium, great ride, but I swapped this out for that, and I kept finding myself taking that K-Con off and going back to this, even though you can see it's repaired right here. When I got it used, it had an edge crack that the seller wasn't aware of actually when I purchased it. So he made it right, but I was able to make a repair to it, and it may not be the prettiest crash ride on the market by any means. It is a great ride cymbal, and like I said, I've try to put it on the shelf, I keep going back to it. Very versatile cymbal. Um, then over here, my right side, what I'm using as a right side crash, and I also ride it occasionally a little bit on some softer stuff. Have a red cymbals Hiraeth, and I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's a Welsh word. Hiraeth 22-inch ride, and this is, I would definitely consider this a light ride cymbal. It does tend to open up pretty quick if you're heavy-handed, especially if you use nylon tip sticks. If you're trying to ride on this during a heavy song, just on the bow of the cymbal, it's gonna wash out pretty quick. On certain songs, that's a great sound. You kind of want those overtones in there, but I tend to use it more so as a crash, just like the others. Very nice bell on it, really good light ride, but it also is an amazing crash. It swells really good. Has a darker tone when you swell on it than the two Masterworks that I have. But those cymbals sound great. Like I said, I would be equally comfortable using any of these three on a gig where I'm just minimal using one all-purpose crash ride. I would take any of them out. Um, and my let's see, we get around to hardware. I kind of got a mix hodgepodge hardware group too, just stuff I've gotten over the years. Got some Pearl stuff. Got some Mapex stuff. My snare stand is the lower part of it, the base is Tama. The upper arm with the basket is Ludwig, I believe, Ludwig Atlas. So this is some I pieced together, but all road worthy, durable, heavy duty hardware. Everything's double braced. I can tend to be a little bit physical when I play, and during certain songs, we do crescendos and builds, and I can get a little heavy handed at times. So I want all of my stuff to be able to withstand anything I throw at it, and this is great hardware for that overall. Right here, I have a Latin Percussion LP mounted tambourine. Um, I'm not sure if they call that one the Cyclops or whatever model it is. It's, you know, regular old mounted tambourine. Has kind of a raised ridge right here. It can take a beating, which I can tend to lay into it sometimes. But for the most part, that's my gear. As far as microphones go, this mic I'm talking on that I'm holding is an MXL 991 small diaphragm condenser. It was part of a package with this MXL 990 over here that I'm using for my floor toms. If you can see way up here, that's a large diaphragm condenser. It came in a package with this 991. Around $100 for the set. They're not the world's most expensive mics, but they're good for what they are. On my snare, I have the trusty old Shure SM57 industry standard snare and tom mic a lot of times. And on the kick, I have a Shure also, a Beta 52A is what's on the kick drum. It's a great microphone. Shure made those, the 57 and the 52. Those were industry standard recording mics for a long time, and still are in some cases. There's been newer, fancier, more expensive mics come out, but those are the battle tested. Can't go wrong with the Shure stuff. Up here, I run a single overhead condenser, and it's a cheap Audio Technica, I think, that came in a drum mic kit. So nothing too expensive as far as my microphones go. Maybe one day I can get some little bit better quality stuff. I'm running all of this through a PreSonus headphone amp out of our main board, and patched out of that, my headphone line out is currently running into the input side of the Shure MVI interface, the single line interface, good for podcasting. I use it for this, so it works. Um, my in ears that I don't have with me today are KZ ZSTs, I think, like $20 on Amazon. They're great. They're again for what they are. So I'm not running. I don't have the crazy expensive gear that a lot of YouTube guys have. It's really modest in comparison. Um, but this is what I use, guys. And there again, I just wanted to put this out and say thanks to all of you who have subscribed and are watching my content and keep others coming in. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't subscribed, click that subscribe button now. And follow me, Worship Drummer Nate, on YouTube. On IG, I'll post my tag in it. It's Nate Carter Drums. There's some symbols in there, so I'll post that link in the description. And I'm also on Facebook as Nate Carter, just kind of my regular 9-to-5 profile thing there. So if you haven't subscribed, go ahead and hit that button. And once again, thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks. God bless.